Hello everyone, welcome to Earth Archives. Air crashes have been a common occurrence in history since humans invented flying vehicles. The causes of many major air crashes cannot even be found, such as Northwest Airlines Flight 2501. Today, let's talk about the story of this air crash. Please subscribe to the show before it starts, and share it with your friends if possible. On the evening of Friday, June the 23rd, 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, operated by a DC-4, took off from New York's LaGuardia Airport at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bound for Seattle, Washington, with planned stops in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Spokane, Washington. Captain Robert C. Lind was at the helm, with First Officer Vern F. Wolfe and Flight Attendant Bonnie Ann Feldman on board. The flight carried 55 passengers, including 27 women, 22 men, and 6 children. Before departure, Captain Lind was informed of thunderstorms over Lake Michigan, but no reports of severe turbulence had been received from other flights, and his flight was cleared to proceed. Throughout the journey, Lind was instructed to descend to lower altitudes at various points to maintain proper separation from other aircraft. At 11:51 p.m. Est, as the DC-4 flew at 3,500 feet over Battle Creek, Michigan, it entered the storm front. Lind radioed the Air Traffic Control Center in Chicago, informing them that he expected to pass Milwaukee in approximately 46 minutes. His route was set to take him through the Red 57 Air Corridor, which ran northeast over Lake Michigan, from Glen, Michigan, toward Milwaukee and Minneapolis. However, by this time, the squall line that had formed earlier in the afternoon had reached the Lake Michigan area. By midnight, the squall line had advanced southward across the lake, accompanied by flashing lightning between the storm cells. The winds howled over the surface of the water, making the flight increasingly treacherous. Though it's unclear exactly what Captain Lind observed as he approached the lake's edge and encountered the storm, at 12:13 a.m. Est, near Benton Harbor, Michigan, about 20 miles south of the Red 57 flight path, Lind requested a descent to 2,500 feet, without specifying the reason for his request. Due to other traffic in the area, Air Traffic Control denied the request, marking the last communication from Flight 2501. As dawn broke, it became clear that Flight 2501 had crashed, with the likely crash site over Lake Michigan. Initially, authorities believed the plane had gone down near Milwaukee, where floating oil had been discovered. However, a commercial fisherman discovered a large patch of floating debris near South Haven, Michigan, leading search teams to believe the wreckage was further south. The Coast Guard and Navy began rescue operations near South Haven, but soon realized there were no survivors. Instead, Coast Guard personnel began recovering floating debris. Local and state authorities began retrieving wreckage washed ashore, and the Navy initiated an underwater search. 5 days later, the search was called off, and authorities declared that they had been unable to locate the exact crash site. The accident claimed the lives of all 58 people on board, marking it as the deadliest aviation accident in U.S. history at the time. A month later, the Civil Aeronautics Board held a hearing in Chicago, interviewing over 30 people in 2 days, including witnesses from the shore, Northwest Airlines personnel, and Coast Guard and Navy members. In January 1951, the board issued its final report, concluding that it could not determine the exact cause of the crash. However, it did suggest a possible crash site located 18 miles northwest of Benton Harbor, Michigan, still far from conclusive. In 2004, before the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, MSRA, embarked on its search for the wreckage of Flight 2501, a nationally renowned novelist and explorer, Clive Cussler, reached out to the organization. He had heard about the mysterious disappearance of the flight, and MSRA was interested in locating it. Cussler proposed a partnership between MSRA and his non-profit organization, the National Underwater Marine Agency, NUMA, which had spent the last 2 decades locating dozens of lost shipwrecks. To carry out the task, Cussler sent his side-scan sonar expert, Ralph Wilbanks, an ocean archaeologist and the owner of Diversified Wilbanks, Inc., to South Haven, Michigan, to collaborate with MSRA, who would be responsible for compiling research and development reports. The joint effort began in the fall of 2004, when the team conducted a search at the location that the Civil Aeronautics Board, CAB, had estimated as the crash site. However, their search proved unsuccessful. Based on evidence from floating debris, both NUMA and MSRA agreed that the search area needed to be expanded to roughly 600 square miles. To refine the search area, MSRA began working with renowned Michigan lake scientist David Schwab, and later with NOAA. Schwab's team developed a more precise and smaller electronic search zone based on drift analysis and post-incident reports. Cussler, who was funding the search, also worked with external experts on ocean drift theory, whose theories differed from Schwab's. Ultimately, Cussler had the final say on the location of the search due to his financial backing. In 2006, the families of the victims reached out to Valerie Van Heest after hearing about the joint team's efforts. This contact ultimately led to Van Heest taking on a more personal mission, tracking down the families of the victims so that, once the wreckage was found, she could inform them before the news reached the media. Over time, she managed to locate 52 of the 58 families, learning about the reasons each passenger was on the flight and the profound impact the loss had on their families. These emotional stories motivated Van Heest to consider writing a book, which further deepened her research. From 2006 to 2012, she uncovered thousands of pages of court testimony in 2 wrongful death lawsuits, finding dozens of individuals, many elderly, who had direct, first-hand accounts of the event. She also discovered an unmarked grave where one of the victims had been buried. Over the years, she compiled a manuscript she hoped to publish after the wreck was found, with Clive Cussler fully supporting her decision to write the book. From 2004 to 2013, the MSRA NUMA team covered around 450 square miles in their search, but the wreckage was never located. However, they did discover the remains of 10 significant shipwrecks. Van Heest later wrote about some of these shipwrecks in her books and magazine articles, delivering hundreds of personal speeches and appearing on television to discuss many of these maritime disasters. Despite the setbacks and the lengthy search, the combined efforts of MSRA, NUMA, and Van Heest's personal dedication brought new insights into the history of Flight 2501 and the tragic loss of 58 lives. The search for the wreckage, which has spanned over a decade, remains one of the most ambitious and emotional underwater searches in U.S. history. In 2014, the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, MSRA, made the decision to continue the search for the wreckage of Flight 2501 on their own. Inspired by the organization's relentless perseverance, Clive Cussler decided to send his team out on 3 separate expeditions in 2015, 2016, and 2017. Despite their continued efforts, the wreckage remained elusive. Since 2018, MSRA has focused solely on the area redefined by David Schwab's post-crash drift analysis, narrowing the search further in 2019. In 2018, Valerie Van Heest appeared on a special episode of the popular TV show Expedition Unknown, hosted by explorer Josh Gates. During filming, Van Heest mentioned her team's extensive efforts in the search for Flight 2501. Gates, intrigued by the story, expressed a desire to collaborate with her and MSRA to continue the search for the plane's wreckage, with the aim of creating an episode on the project. The episode, titled The Vanishing Airliner, was filmed in August 2019 and aired in February 2020 as a 2-hour special. It featured Van Heest, her husband Jack, David Schwab, MSRA divers Todd White and Jeff Wass, and others whom Van Heest had contacted over the years. The episode, which was part of Season 6, also adapted Van Heest's book Fatal Crossing into a TV special. The partnership between MSRA, Van Heest and Expedition Unknown brought the search for Flight 2501 into the public eye once again. The special gave viewers a deeper understanding of the decades-long quest to find the wreckage and the emotional impact it had on the families of the victims. Despite the numerous challenges and the still ongoing search, the episode helped to reignite interest in the case, as well as the dedication of those who have tirelessly worked toward uncovering the mystery behind the vanished airliner. Though the wreckage of Flight 2501 remains undiscovered, the search continues to inspire a growing community of adventurers, explorers, and families, all driven by the hope of one day finding the plane that vanished over Michigan's waters nearly 70 years ago.